Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope you're well and hope you can hear me this time from the beginning. Can you let me know? Let me get to sharing the presentation. Yeah, sorry, I was a little bit late. There's an issue with the actual presentation. Is it on? I don't hear the sound. Yes, we can. Okay, excellent. Thank you for the confirmation, Newman. All right, okay. Let's get right into it. I don't know what's happened with this with log sync. It used to work very well, but the reason why it's a little bit late is when I tried to put it into the presentation mode. I'll show you here. First of all, it never used to be like this. Used to be just a play button here. You'd click on it, you directly start the presentation. They removed that, but now when I go into presentation mode, it actually doesn't go through everything in the order which I put it. So it becomes, it's all muddled, unfortunately. So what I'm going to be doing is just doing it like this, because when I put it in the full amount, it's not working. Okay, so today's, my topic anyway that I'm going to be sharing. I don't know if anybody has suggested something similar. I've stopped looking at tafsirs for a very long time now. I just don't look at them and actually try to forget actively what I've ever seen in them. So what I'm going to be talking about here is going to be related to Noah's son. I put a little bit of something about it in the description. And the reason why I want to get into this is for maybe a few later topics and later videos I might do. But it's just basically a look at Noah's son. You'll see what I'm talking about in the beginning. But first of all, let's look at this first section. What I want to talk about is the Quran's lack of vulgarity. So the Quran is never, it never speaks of matters, relating to cause of nature or sexual activity in an explicit way. All right, to explicitly speak of these things, sort of like openly in a graphic way. That's basically the definition of vulgarity. A person who's vulgar is in vulgar language is to basically use talk about these things, these sort of like private sensitive things in a very sort of abrupt, blunt, open manner. Okay, and the Quran does the exact opposite of that, right? It's not vulgar at all. So it says things like إِذَا لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, okay, when you touch women. All right, what does that mean? It's really talking about sexual intercourse. If you touch men, this is in the verse where it's talking about if you can't find water to the wudu, right? If you can't find water to the wudu, or if you're outside basically and you've come from another one. Here is when one of you comes back from the wilderness. Basically, you've relieved yourself, a call of nature. Even in English, right? You're saying I've got a call of nature, right? That's a non-vulgar way of saying that, right? Or you talk about people now to say I've got to go number one, number two, right? So in that verse, you have these two phrases where it's very, it's not vulgar, it's veiled. What is meant is veiled, but it's completely understood. Okay, and another verse, فَلَمَّا تَغَشَّاهَا, when he covers her, she carries away. So it's talking about the conception, right? فَلَمَّا تَغَشَّاهَا, when he covers her, is again talking about sexual intercourse, but in a non-vulgar manner, right? She carries a weight and goes. And a very interesting one is the one in talking about fasting, right? So the verse starts off, it's one complete verse, starts off saying, permitted for you on the nights of fasting is the approach to women. So again, it's a veiled, non-vulgar way of saying something, okay? The approach is to approach مَرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ, right? And then, a little bit later, then talks about and eat and drink. It's as if, but we weren't talking about eating and drinking, were we? We were talking about the approach to women, right? But it's this subtlety, right? And eat and drink until the white thread becomes distinct from the black thread of dawn. Okay, so the the meaning there really is, of course, yes, eat and drink. That's part of fasting until dawn. But also, you can have this approach to your wives all the way up till dawn as well. That's but that's veiled underneath the and eat and drink, right? It's this nice transition, very subtle transition, and then it goes back right afterwards. But do not touch them while you are in seclusion in the mosques. Okay, don't touch skins with them. Basically, لا تباشروهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد. So you have this. You see how it's non-vulgar. It's subtle. All right. Even this idea. Okay, you can have that you can have sexual intercourse with your wives until the morning, right? And on the nights of fasting, that even that is veiled. It's saying eat and drink, right? So what I wanted to mention why I mentioned that is because it has something to do with what I think about Noah's son, which is essentially my conclusion about him is that he was an illegitimate child. He was an illegitimate child. He wasn't Noah's real son. I'll try to put this in a presentation form afterwards, but in running it a few times, I've tried refreshing this website. I've tried everything. It doesn't want to cooperate, and it insists on putting this presentation in the order that I wrote them, which wasn't. I didn't write them in the right order. I started off with this, but I suppose maybe this part I can, because that is the part that I want to mention, I think. Yeah, so the verse. So, for those familiar with the story of Noah, one of the things is that when Noah goes on the ark and he tries to call his son, and then his son doesn't want to come, and then a wave comes between them and he drowns. One of the things that Noah later does, for which he is rebuked, is he says, "Oh my Lord, my son is from my family. Inna ibni min ahli. When the wa'adaka al-haq wa anta ahkum al-hakimin." He's very subtly trying to ask, for his son. Okay, but the response from Allah is, "Qala ya Nuh innahu laysa min ahlik." He is not from your family. He's not from your family. Okay, and that phrase is perplexed, as far as I know, a lot of the scholars. But this next part is very strange. It says, "Innahu amalun ghayru salih." Innahu amalun ghayru salih. Indeed, he is. And of course, in the translation, they put one whose work was other than righteous. I don't think that's correct, and it isn't even in the Arabic, of course. The Arabic is saying innahu, him himself. And just like Nuh said, innahu laysa min ahlik, innahu, he is not from your family. Innahu, he is a action which was not righteous. A action which was not righteous. Which I believe it means that basically he was, to use now, to make it clear that he was basically illegitimate child from his wife, had was committed zina with somebody, and that is the amal which is ghayr salih. So instead of calling him, no, he's not your son, he's a bastard, basically, or you've been bluntly cucked, as they say, right, in English. إنه عمل غير صالح. It's put in this non-vulgar way. Okay, إنه عمل غير صالح. He's not your son. He is a action, the result of an action which was not salih, which was not righteous. And then he says, فلا تسألني ما ليس لك به علم. Don't ask me what you don't know about. It means you didn't know this. Okay, لا تسأل ما ليس لك به علم. إني أعظك أن تكون من الجاهلين. I am warning you. I am advising you so you don't be of the ignorant. Now, one of the things which is related to this is in Surah at the end of Surah At-Tahrim. God gives a similitude. Okay, when at the beginning of that surah, God is rebuking two of the wives of the Prophet for something, and at the end here, God is saying, is giving an example of the الذين كفروا, all right, those who have kafaru, and he mentions he puts in together what I want to draw attention to here is that he puts in together the wife of Nuh and the wife of Lut. Okay, امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا, and after this it's the dual form which is used. So indicating they're basically the same. Okay, كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما. Now this خانتاهما means they were treacherous to them, but it's also the word that's used, for just khiyana, like even marital bed treachery. فخانتاهما فلم يغنيا عنهما من الله شيئا وقيل ادخلا النار مع الداخلين. Right, so it's all in dual. And why is Nuh's wife being put in the same category pretty much with Lut's wife? Now we know Lut's wife, what was the issue with her? It was sexual impropriety, right? So it was that kind of stuff. Sorry about that. So Allah presents an example of that. So this is another indication that that they are in that same category, that the khiyana was in the same category. It was a sexual khiyana. Now, let me get out of this because the presentation after this, actually maybe it does carry on properly. So one of the things that you will see is at the end of Surah Nuh, the chapter of Nuh. So this is one of the last few verses. So after the whole thing, the whole conversation of Nuh with his people and trying to guide them, etc. One of the things the last few verses says this: مما خطيئاتهم أغرقوا فأدخلوا النار فلم يجدوا لهم من دون الله أنصارا. Okay, because of their sins, the people of Nuh, they were drowned and put into the fire, and they found none for themselves besides Allah as any help. So this is after. So what's going to come next is what? After the flood. So after the flood, it's not, it's not pre-flood. Because the reason why I mentioned, because the next verses are Nuh making a dua. He's calling Allah on Allah, right? And at the end of the dua, I don't think it's been answered. Of course, it hasn't been answered. But Nuh says, وَقَالَ نُوحٌ. So this is after the flood. So this what his dua here, which most take to be the dua which he made before the flood, and then the flood was sort of a response to that. No, this is afterwards. So he came down from the mountain, and after the flood. وَقَالَ نُوحٌ رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ دَيَّارًا. Nuh said, "Oh my Lord, do not leave upon the earth from among the disbelievers." It says, and the translation says an inhabitant, but the actual Arabic says dayyara, from diyar, from house, from homes. Don't leave any of their homes, okay? Their homes. And of course, that is not about the actual structure, it's about the actual, the families, okay? And that's clear from the next verse. He says, إِنَّكَ إِن تَذَرْهُمْ. Truly, if you leave them, يُضِلُّ عِبَادَكَ. They will misguide your ibad. وَلَا يَلِدُ. And here's the key. And they will not give birth except to fajiran kafara, except to those who are wicked ones and kuffar. Now, of course, that is not true, right? You can get from a kafir, you can get somebody born who is not a kafir. But this, as I'm going to explain it, I think it's a dua of sort of frustration from Nuh. He's seen that, his wife, who was disbelieving, basically, and the child that he thought he had from her also turned out that way. Okay, also turned out somebody that thing. So he says, "La yalidu illa fajin kafar." Well, if he is a mu'min, he is a believer, he was one of the messengers of Allah. If his son was really his son, he would not make this dua. He would not say they would not give birth except to a fajir kafara. Okay, well, you yourself, Nuh, if we accept the traditional understanding that his son who drowned really was his son, you, Nuh, yourself, you gave birth to a fajr kafar, even though you're not from the kuffar, right? Excuse me. And then the next verse, he gives us something else. Then he says, he prays, Rabbi ighfir li, and I think almost some of this is a little bit of a embarrassment that he made this kind of dua, because these two duas are very, are very strange, right? He says, don't leave anybody in the earth. This is not Allah's will. Allah's will is not that he leaves none of the kuffar on the earth. But he's making this dua, and I think it's a dua of frustration. And this as well is just wrong. That if you leave them, they will. Of course, they might misguide, but they might not misguide. All right, but that they will not give birth except a fajr kafar is just plainly false, right? But then he says, Rabbi ighfir li, oh God, forgive me. Okay, wali walidayya. And here's an interesting thing. Why did he say this? Okay, وَلِمَنْ دَخَلَ بَيْتِيَ مُؤْمِنًا, and whoever enters my home with faith as a believer, okay, in mu'minan, security, right? لمن دخل بيتي مؤمنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات ولا تزد الظالمين إلا تبارا. Okay, ولمن دخل بيت, is this sort of like because somebody did enter his home, okay, not as a believer but rather as a fajir kafara, right? ولا يلدوا, they will not give birth except to fajiran kafara. So it's almost as if it's an indication. He's saying, I'm seeking forgiveness. Whoever enters my home, where my family are, my space, my wife, comes to my home as a believer, as a person of faith. All right, and it's sort of like an insinuation that somebody did enter, not with faith, and of course that's what I think is the case. That there was zina between his wife and somebody else who entered his home not as a believer. So he puts in this dua at the end, and this dua, of course, isn't something that God accepted, right? As far as we know, it's not something that God accepted. Well, not all of it anyway, because God didn't destroy all the kafir and leave no homes from them. And again, it's after a flood. It's after the flood. So that's that. Noah's son. And yes. Yeah, and that's basically it. So at the end, I just wanted to put a final note that the final dua, of course, was a dua of frustration, I believe, and it was never answered because it isn't from the will of Allah that He would, not leave on the earth any but the mu'mineen. And again, it was after the flood. Okay, so the flood isn't a response to this. And it was likely made after coming down also from the mountain and seeing that there were other people still on the earth. So he made this dua. So this is one of the evidences that the flood was not a global flood. Okay, why would he make this dua if him and his family, the believers, were the only ones who are on the earth? Right. So because this is after the flood. So if the flood was global and it wiped away all of the non-believers, then after the flood he makes his dua, oh God, don't leave any of them on the earth. If you leave them, there aren't any. So why is he making this dua? If this was basically fulfilled in the traditional sense that the flood came and it wiped out all of the الذين كفروا. But no, it was a local flood, and then when he afterwards they came down, they spread out for the earth, and he saw no, there are other people around. Okay, there are other people. So then he makes it dua, Allah, do not leave any of them. Why have you left some? Basically, why are there still some here? I thought this flood was going to wipe them all out. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to share. Okay, let's have a look and see what do we have in the comments before I bring some people on. Funnily enough, actually, there's nobody on backstage. Nobody wants to come on? Or do we not have that many people? 12. Okay, let me have a look at some of the comments. Assalamu alaikum, Adriana. Very good to see you again. I also think they were giants because his son could stand between Noah and the big wave, and he trusted he could climb a mountain. Yeah, I mean, there's still. I mean, I think that there's so much we don't know about early humanity. I'm not I believe in the evolution, but not in Darwinism at all. And that's purely for scientific reasons anyway. But that's something that we can check it out. It makes sense. Don't know why the idea of the global flood was made popular. Only me talking. Yeah, okay, Adrian, only you talking. No problem. Here we have again, they were drowned because of their habitual sinfulness and sent to hell. Brother, why Allah says sent and not will be sent? Udkhilu nara. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing. I never thought of that, to be honest. Udkhilu mimma khati'atihim ughriqu fa udkhilu nara. They were this is like almost a passive, right? They were made to enter. Made to enter. You see, the Bible says that God destroyed these people, never mentioned that Prophet Nuh prayed for this destruction. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I don't see. There's nothing else in the surah which says, or in the story of Noah, which says that you know that Noah prayed for the flood and then it happened. Okay, that in fact what we have in the Quran is that he kept on calling and calling Noah, and then God says to him, in the Quran, إِنَّهُ لَن يُؤْمِنْ إِلَّا مَنْ قَدْ آمَنَ. Nobody's going to, you can stop, you can relax now. You've done an amazing job, but nobody will believe except those who have already had. I keep on saying believe. I really want to get that out of my tongue, but we've grown up with that. Nobody will have faith except those who already have faith. Okay, and then that's it. So it wasn't the one who actually stopped sort of Noah from continuing to call, and he called for so long, was God Himself. It wasn't that Noah said, "Okay, that's it now." I'm upset with them. Oh God, you know, destroy them and send the flood. Except no, no, no. It was God who actually had to tell him, "You can stop now." You know. So I think that's Nuh was one of the most amazing messengers. He's called in the Quran كان عبدا شكورا. كان عبدا شكورا. He is one of those who had shukr. That's one of the praises given to him. It's one of the highest praises, right? Because if you think about the ghayat, the aims of the Quran, which I mentioned in that long video about Quranic Islam versus inherent Islam, that ibadah, and from ibadah and you're supposed to gain taqwa, and then from taqwa shukr is the highest, and shukr is to use those blessings which you have been given as they were intended to be used. And if you read Surah Nuh, look at how Nuh is conversing with them. Don't you see this? Don't you see that? Don't you see that he made the sun, the moon, and so he's literally practicing shukr, right? And the shukr of the heart, the eyes, the mind, and that's why God always says in the Quran, often repeated, right? He's the one who gave you your hearing, your sight, and your mind. قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ. Sorry, how little is it that you are grateful? How little you are grateful, because if true gratitude of those things is to use them, to actually use them. All right, okay. All right. Looks like most of the regulars who used to come on are busy today. Anybody else want to come on? Or maybe we'll be ending today's meeting earlier. Let me see what else we have in the chat. Yeah, exactly. Allah didn't say that the whole world are going to be thing. Somebody I think was asking. I saw something about my thoughts on evolution. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, look, I personally think that this is something which, of course, Muslims push the opposite way. They say, no, the Quran, Islam and the Quran, things are, you have scientific miracles, that it's completely compatible with science. It is, but the thing about it, it's just not it's not about science. The Quran, the verses of the Quran, they're too vague to be scientific in terms of scientific proofs. And in the same way, that also means they're too vague to be debunked scientifically. Okay, they're not about. None of the verses in the Quran are supposed to be giving you scientific truths. They're all supposed to be science, right? We have certain indications that we ourselves are the ones who are supposed to learn about these things. Siru fil ard fanzuru kayfa bada Allahu al-khalq. Right? Travel through the earth and see how God created, how God started the creation. Meaning what? It means in the earth we can ourselves see that. We can find that out. And that is essentially what Darwin did, right? He traveled through the earth and he saw something which is very key, definitely, what he saw. But in terms of the whole, Darwinism, evolution by natural selection, and speciation, no, I just don't buy it at all. And the reason why so many people buy it, I think, is because they know so little about biology and thing. And conversely, they will tell those who deny evolution, and I don't deny evolution per se, but the evolution that's been taught because it's the best theory that they have. That's why it's taught, and that's the default of science. The default of science is that the best theory we have, that is the truth. Until another theory comes along, which is better, now that is the truth, and the one before it is not. That's just how it goes. Okay, so of course, all evidence about it is going to be given because, it is the best that they have. But there's a lot of holes, so many holes. Evolution is just, how do you get organs? They can't answer any of these things. An organ system. Just imagine your circulatory system, right? The blood veins and the blood vessels. There are some things which just don't work until they all come together. They have to be there together at the same time, right? There are some things you can't have increasing gradually. You can't have, right? It doesn't work, right? Because they need each other. They are interdependent parts of it. And never mind the mathematical problems with Darwinism. There's just so much of it. But of course, there's definitely the idea that things changed and evolved. But how did it happen? I think science has it completely wrong. Well, it doesn't even have any answers, really, to be honest. Nobody can show you an actual mechanism of anything evolving. Just there isn't. But like I said, what I wanted to say before is that I keep those things separate. I mean, for example, Muslims talk about the idea that the Quran mentions that the universe is expanding. For me, on purely scientific grounds, I actually believe it's not expanding. The expanding universe and the Big Bang, I don't believe in the Big Bang. That the universe is expanding. These are things, it's a minority view in science, and I think it's probably going to remain that way for a long time, just because the Big Bang theory and the expanding universe was so popularized because you had big personalities behind it. Stephen Hawking's guy in a wheelchair, Big Bang. So it became a huge, the Big Bang theory. You have this that sitcom, right? So I think it will be a long time before, but I think that, I actually put that in that video, God's End Game. At the end of it, I put Dr. Eric Lerner, on his presentation of some of his research, which shows basically that, if you look at everything, he says at the end of it, some of the things that you've heard in this conference, might sound like, saying, the emperor has got no shorts, or he's not wearing a shirt, or he hasn't got a hat. But in terms of, if you put all of it together, I think it's time to say that in terms of the Big Bang, the emperor is wearing no clothes because there's just very little evidence for it. Actual evidence from the predictions of what we can see, not the theorizing that, that Hawkins and them did. So how did I get into that topic? Let me just check there's some people on backstage now, so I'm going to bring you on. Let me just see what else we have in the chat. Yeah, so there's ideas of a cyclic universe. There's a steady state universe. There's a lot of things, but I just don't think. What has come upon you that you fear the majesty of God? Knowing that He has created you by exactly. So in stages. I mean, that was amazing. That shukr, that what Nuh was saying to them and trying to get them to think and to ponder and to look and to see. That was all from shukr. Sheikh al-Darwin, yeah. I thought about somebody else put something. Yeah, yes, I know the Quran is not about science, it is about science, exactly. Signs, not science. So I cannot hold myself from comparing scientific discoveries. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I think there are indications. I mean, you can get some indications in the Quran for certain things which are scientific, but it's vague. You can't, I keep it separate myself, to be honest. I keep them separate because, in the end, the science is what we discover, and it will keep on changing. The Quran is meant for guidance. Every verse in it is about guidance. It's really about imparting scientific truths. Okay, let's bring some people on. Noman. Assalamu alaikum, Noman.
Alaikum salam.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good. Good to have you on. Is this the first time you've come on?
It's the second.
Second time. Yeah. I thought I recognized you.
Uh, I want to say that the Quran sometimes mentions those who don't believe. Oh no, those who don't believe in
MashaAllah.
God's signs.
Hmm.
Um, and for a while, I've thought that I've been thinking that God's signs refers to anything that teaches us about
Hmm.
the truths about God and the universe
Hmm.
and religion.
Hmm.
So it's not just the verses in the Quran.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. What there's one of the verses which says, سَنُرِيهُمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. We will show them our signs on the horizons and in themselves until it is clear to them and it is the haqq. And there are many verses which starts off saying, I mean, primarily I would say that some of the when we talk about the signs of God, what the Quran is saying, these are signs. So when Allah says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, and from His signs is this, and from His signs are that, those things are signs. Those things are primarily signs because God is saying, and from His signs, for example, is the changing of night and day. All right, so that you may find rest in the night, and get on with work and stuff in the day. Right, so these are signs. So when it talks about the signs, definitely, I mean, primarily when you talk about those who reject the signs, they must come under that, not just the signs of the Quran, but even those things which the Quran itself was pointing. These are signs. But yes, definitely. You know what's interesting about the whole thing about those who reject الذين كذبوا بآياتنا, the verses say, which is often repeated, right? We have we always have الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, those who have faith and do good deeds, right? Now you would normally expect, what would you expect the reverse of that? What do you expect the reverse of that? You'd expect it to be الذين كفروا وعملوا السيئات, those who have kafaru and did bad deeds, right? وعملوا السيئات, right? And this is one of the things which is a clue to the fact that kufr is not about belief. First of all, it's not about belief, you know. So because there
Yeah,
has to be an analogous into it. There has to be there's a juxtaposition going on here. الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, those who have faith and do good deeds. The fact that we're talking about do good deeds on this side, on the other side, there must be something in there which means to do bad deeds. Okay, so for a while I was thinking, okay, is that because الذين آمنوا? Of course, the opposite of that is الذين كفروا, right? So is الذين is عملوا الصالحات, those who do good deeds? Is the opposite of that كذبوا بآياتنا, those who كذبوا بآياتنا? Is that a Quranic terminology for doing bad deeds? Is that
no, not really.
So it's something I was thinking about, because it is strange. Why isn't it that the opposite is it in this verse? Why doesn't the Quran says الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات and then says الذين كفروا وعملوا السيئات?
Yeah,
It's a question. I've been thinking about. I've had some ideas about it, but nothing conclusive.
another interesting thing is that the Quran, as far as I've seen, never mentions a kafir doing anything good.
Yeah.
They're always up. They're always up to misguided, crooked things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things I mentioned in the. I think we did one live stream about actions, not beliefs, because I've made a few posts on that on Reddit about how it's in the end it's God's going to reward and punish according to actions, not beliefs. Actions, not beliefs. And some of the pushback I get from that, of course, is they will say, okay, well, this verse is talking about this person who is this kafir is going to be punished, but and his deeds are not going to be accepted. But if you look in all of those verses, the actions that is being mentioned, it's obviously is not good actions. Okay, and I put that example of that in that stream, because God gives two examples of the actions of الذين كفروا, and they are not good. They are not good analogies. Basically, the examples given are very bad. What was the verses? أعمالهم كالسراب, their actions are like a mirage in one of the verse, and then the next verse أو كظلمات في بحر اللجين, or like darknesses in the midst of a sea. Okay, that's what the analogies for the actual actions are. the الذين كفروا, the actions are not good actions. Not that does not. It's not that they are doing good actions, and because they don't believe, God rejects their actions. That's not the case at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, brilliant. And
Uh,
anything else to add? I was.
not
What
to
were you
add.
thinking about that? Yeah, what were you thinking about the? Um, what do you think that means? الذين كذبوا بآياتنا. What do you think that?
That's basic.
Like why is it in there in terms of, it's being juxtaposed with الذين عملوا السيئات عملوا الصالحات.
Well, because if you rejected the signs of God, um, why would you do good?
Yeah, I mean, but like, well, which sign? I mean, for example, one of the things I thought about in terms of that verse is الذين كذبوا بآياتنا. The signs which are in the self. Like I said, one of the verses Quran talks about the signs which are in yourself, right? سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم. We will show them our signs in the horizons and in themselves, right? So when you deny that sort of your conscience, sort of one of the signs of God is that conscience inside, that you
Yeah.
have signs inside you. So in denying them, okay, that's what will just lead you to do bad deeds, right? So the person who murders, he does so out, first of all, he is rejecting one of the signs of God in himself, which is the knowledge that this is wrong, right? He's
Anything that
rejecting that.
guides to the righteous path is a sign.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. A sign, right? Because it points to the right path. Yeah, definitely.
So there's one more thing I would like to say. It's unrelated, completely
Yeah,
unrelated. It's about
that's fine. Go ahead.
the previous scriptures. The Quran often mentions the Tawrat and the Injil.
Yeah.
And I've seen some Quran-centric Muslims who believe that they are preserved, but I have read some of the Bible, and the way it reads doesn't sound very godly to me.
Very preserved, right? Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing, but because we can definitely talk about, that because the Quran does talk about the the Torah and Injil in the time of its revelation. They had it then. Okay. الذين يجدوه مكتوبا عندهم في التوراة والإنجيل. They're talking about the النبي الأمي, the Gentile or the unlettered prophet, whom they find written among them, written in the Torah and Injil that are with them, right? So that they had it. It's interesting because I personally believe the Injil of Isa. I believe the Quran. First of all, I believe the Quran is a unique scripture. It's the only true from all of the God's revelations. It's the only one which is actually a sort of a dictation, a word for word dictation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't believe the other scriptures were like that. Not the Torah, not the Injil, not the Zabur. None of
the
them
Jews and
were.
Christians believe that those books were written by humans.
Yeah, I mean exactly. I mean they think. I mean I don't think those books are them. First of all, in terms of at least the 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 Gospels, right? I believe they contain the Gospel. So the Injil
Oh
is
yeah,
among them.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So exactly, they contain the. So I believe the gospel at the Injil is a teaching. It's a teaching. It isn't. It wasn't actual like scripture in that kind of way that words and this. No, it was a
Because not
even the
all.
Quran, right? The Quran is an oral teaching first. It was a recitation, right?
Yeah.
But the difference, I think, the Quran is actual. The word choices in the Quran are God's word choices, right? But that's not the case for any of the other previous revelations. That's what I think. Yeah.
And not
What were you
not
going to
all
say? Sorry.
revelation not all revelation has to be in the form of a book.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I mean, the Christians say it explicitly. They say these were inspired, right? So they make a distinction between inspiration, right? That these are inspired works, okay, inspired works, and I think that's more along the right side. The Quran is unique in that it's the only direct revelation in terms of word, revelation, like a dictation from God. I don't think any of the other previous revelations were like that, you know. And for example, even the Torah, right? The Torah wasn't revealed to Moses, right? There's no verse in the Quran where Moses and the Torah are mentioned in the same verse, right? The Quran talks about giving the kitab to Moses, and there's another discussion about the actual kitab. What does that mean? But the Torah, it looks like the Torah is almost the accumulation of the revelations to various prophets, the Israelite prophets. Okay, so it's the law, right? The Torah, the law, as it was, developed, as the subsequent prophets kept on, adding parts of it as was needed for developing, Israeli society and the laws and stuff like that, you know. And Torah يحكم بها النبيون الذين أسلموا. The Quran says, right? The Torah, إنا أنزلنا التوراة. We sent down the Torah, and the prophets judged by it. Okay, but who was it sent down if not to the prophets? So it was sent down to the prophets, and they also judged by it. And they had, each prophet would come and they continuously judge by it. And for example, even Isa, right? He amended the law. He amended the law for the. Isa, yeah, he amended the law, right? So he made some things halal which previously had been haram, okay, and they had been haram because of some of the excesses of the Israelites. So God, as punishment, made some good things haram for them. He made some good things haram. So he said, so that was part of the Torah, right? That was part of the Torah, that these good things were haram, and how were they made haram? Through some prophets, okay. And then when Isa came along, he made those things halal again. Right, and that became part of the Torah. So the Torah was a developing thing by the prophets. The prophets kept on coming and adding to it. That's how I view the Torah right now. And the Injil, like I said, he said did not receive an actual scripture. It was a teaching. The Injil was a teaching that he had, so it wasn't an actual recital as we have it.
There was something that confounded me about the Jewish law, and that is that says that he prohibited certain things because they were transgressing.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing just now.
It can't possibly be that all of the Jews were transgressing. So why does God make a blanket prohibition for all Jews?
Well, don't forget. I mean, the Jews were never scattered like they are now, right? They were actually they were all together. They weren't. There aren't that many. And one of the things that people say is we can't find evidence of the Exodus, right? Well, because they have in their mind this huge population of Jews that there weren't that many. I don't think, right? In Moses' time, Moses is only a few generations from Joseph, from Isa, right? And Joseph was one of the actual 12 sons of Israel, of Jacob. Okay, and then you just have just a few generations later, you're not going to have thousands of people. It's not these sort of movies that you have where you see these thousands of people, this column of people going out the Exodus. No, they were much fewer than that, and they were all pretty much together, right? For most of their history, I think. And then you had that's why you have this thing. Well, I don't know much about it, but they talk about the lost tribe of Israel, right? Why is it lost? Why is that the only one lost? Because the others are together. They're not separate, so separated by scattered. I mean, now we have, of course, other theories that will tell you that many of the Jews are not actually really descendants of the Jewish tribes, right? So you have that those who have converted to Judaism. They will say a lot of the Jewish people now are actually Jews who have converted, right? They're not the actual Banu Israel, right? They're Jewish, but not Banu Israel, etc. That sort of thing. I think that it does make sense because we are talking about a community which was united for most of its time. It wasn't that it was scattered. So when Allah made it haram, it's because they themselves as a community they transgressed. All of them basically. Yes.
Yeah, but
so that's what I would.
Those people who transgressed had offspring, and their children and their descendants also had these prohibitions.
Yeah.
What was their fault?
That's a good question. But I would say one of the things that God can do is, limiting the good things is not the same as, as a huge punishment. Not like, making some things which were good haram, okay, to sort of like curb them is different from that. And when they were, and at any time, they had continuous profit, so that could have been taken away. And so I don't see it as it's not like, the sins of the fathers are being, they're not being punished for the sins of their fathers, but the laws are being changed. Okay, so even for example in the Prophet's time, right, the Quran addresses the Ben Israel there, saying, "Why did you kill the prophets of old if you are truly, um, if you are truthful?" What does that mean? Killed the prophets of old. Well, the Jews at the Prophet's time didn't kill any prophets, did they? Okay, but they are
Yeah.
they are they are they are they fall under the accusation because they justify it. They were justifying. They were saying, yes, it was right what we did. It was the correct thing, and so because of that, you come under that as well, right? So I think it has. I think it would have something to do with the fact that the Jews, and they've always been sort of they've been sort of this, people which are together, right? They have their own ideas. So they would kill prophets, okay, and they would all they would be sort of united on that, right?
Mm.
They're very cohesive, you know. So what their forefathers did, okay, they would say, yes, it was right what we did. We
Mm.
they were correct, and so I think that's how it was. So these good things were made prohibited for them, and part of that was to help the next generation return to God. So if they had said, okay, then, you know these things we were wrong, basically, in what we, as in our forefathers or our fathers, were wrong, then that would have that prohibition would have been lifted. That ban on the good things would have been lifted. So it's a way of trying to correct the community, I believe. So that's how I would see that, because it is like, even now, right? Even now, we some people say, why aren't the Muslims, why isn't God helping them? Well, we're not we're under this pressure in terms of what we are, but we are still preaching. We are still holding on to our misguidance. We are holding on to our misguidance and saying it's guidance, for the most part, right? So, it's, until we give that up, ولو أنهم تضرعوا لأكلوا من فوقهم ومن تحتهم, the Quran says, and if they had humbled themselves after our bats came to them, after our sort of the difficult times that we put them, if they when we put them on difficult times, if they had humbled themselves, then we would have opened up for them the blessings from the earth, and they would have eaten from above them and from underneath them, etc. But no, if you hold on to your misguidance, then you carry on with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I would say.
Also, if I remember correctly, uh, in the verses where it talks about the Jews killing their prophets, it actually
Yeah,
says uh, تقتلون, not
yeah,
كنتم تقتلون.
yeah. Exactly.
It
You,
says
exactly. You people there, you killed your prophets, right? That's what I'm saying. That it addresses the people who were there in the prophet's time, but those people who are alive then didn't kill prophets. Right? Why are they being addressed like that? Because they are part of the group, in terms of they accept it. They accepted that, they thought that that was just. They justified it. They
yeah.
justified the killing of those prophets. Okay, so they come under the same rebuke. They come under the same rebuke because they justified. They said, yes. If they had said no, it was wrong what our forefathers did. It was wrong. It was unjust. They shouldn't have done that, etc. No, they wouldn't have been spoken of in that way, right? But because they are saying no, they boasted it, right? Inna qatalna Isa, right? We killed Jesus, right? Rasulullah. So they are sort of proud. Even now, right? I mean, you have, I don't want to don't want to sound, like I'm brushing the whole of the Jewish faith, but you have these viral videos that go around, right, of these kids who would say, "Yeah, we killed Jesus and we're proud of it," and stuff like that, right?
Whoa.
So that kind of thing, right? Somebody who says, "Yes, we killed," if the Jewish people would say, "Yes, we killed Jesus and we're proud of it," then they fall under that, right? Because what are they doing? They are defending it. They are part. They're not disassociating themselves from a crime, are they? They're not saying no,
Yeah, exactly.
that was wrong. No, they're saying yes, we did it. They themselves say we. So God says, yeah, you did it. right? You put yourself with them, God address them with them. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's like neo Nazis. We
Yeah,
killed the
sort
Jews
of.
and we're proud of it.
Yeah, yeah. So they, this, of course, just as a what are they called? Footnote, or what are they called? Um, disclaimer, right? Disclaimer. Of course, this is just anecdotal, and it's that video that I saw was just a few young people. So, but that's just basically the idea. The idea behind it. If you yourself count yourself as people, as a certain people, okay, then you are from them. Yeah. وَمَن يَتَوَلَّهُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُم. The Quran says, whoever allies himself with them, then they are from them. Okay, you are the one who's choosing who you belong to. You're choosing to belong to this, and to defend what they've done. Then you take on that group's collective position, don't you? And
Mm.
so that's how I would say it. We have actually finally somebody else who wants to come on. So if there's something else or
Yeah.
not, go
So,
ahead.
okay. Well,
Yeah, go ahead
I
if there's
want to say
something
one
else.
more thing, but
That's fine. Go for it.
uh, in Surah 5, verse 42, it says that.
Mm.
Wait a minute. Wrong verse. Sorry. Let me find it. Ah. It says, verse 43. وكيف يحكمونك وعندهم التوراة فيها حكم الله.
Yeah.
So this verse basically seems to imply that the current Torah that the Jews had back then was in fact the real Torah, and that's
Yeah.
I thought that was very curious.
Yeah. They have like I said, I believe they do have the Torah. The Torah, they decided that no, it was lost, and the real Injil is lost. No, Quran talks about it. It says, وَلْيَحْكُمْ أَهْلُ الْإِنْجِيلِ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ. Let the people of the Injil, judge by what Allah has revealed in it. Yeah, and it also says, وَلْيَحْكُمْ أَهْلُ التَّوْرَةِ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ. Right, and really, one of the undercurrents of that is for us as well. وَلْيَحْكُمْ أَهْلُ الْقُرْآنِ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ. Right, let the people of the Quran establish it. And one of the verses it says, يا أهل الكتاب لستم على شيء حتى تقيموا التوراة والإنجيل وما أنزل إليكم من ربكم. O people of the book, أهل الكتاب, you have nothing until you actually establish the Torah and the Injil and what was sent out to you from your Lord. And it's interesting that it's mentioned in three things, right? The Torah, Injil, and what was sent down to you from your Lord. So it's not just the Torah, Injil, and Injil. Okay. And then it says, if you don't establish it, then you have nothing, and that applies to us as well. If we don't establish the Quran, we are upon nothing. We are upon nothing, because we are followed the same way. I mean, we have this. I mean, for those who accept or don't accept the hadith, like I mentioned before, I do accept a hadith which have the ring of truth. They follow in the line of the Quran. One of the things that the Prophet said that you will follow the way of those before you. And that's obvious. We have the same enemy, the same shaitan, the same, mentality, the same thing. We are people like they were. The tricks that worked on them have worked on us, right? So the Prophet said, we'll follow the way of those before us, and we have, just like they are not establishing the Torah and Injil, we are also not establishing the Quran. But in terms of the Torah and Injil being present, yes, they were definitely present. There's actually interesting thing. I don't know if you know this YouTube channel called
No.
Blogging Theology. He recently put up a interview with Dr. Ali Al-Ta'i, who is a professor in Zaytuna University, and they're actually talking about. They were talking a little bit about crucifixion and this, etc. And also they got into this topic of the Torah and the Injil. What do they mean? Do they mean the scriptures that they were there at the time or not? So I'd advise looking into that as well. But for me, I definitely hold the position that yes, it doesn't mean that they're all complete. When the things where I talk about tahrif, that in the Quran where it talks about they wrote the book with their hands and then said this is from Allah. Okay, that nobody the verse doesn't indicate that they're talking about the Torah and Injil. It could be other things. So they could of the tahrif could be of other scriptures, of other things, of just creating whole new revelations. As they'd say this is from God. Okay, it's not doesn't necessarily have to mean that they were changing the Torah and the Injil. Okay, and like I said, the Torah and Injil, I believe that the actual Torah and Injil are within those things. So the gospel of Jesus is within the gospels written. Okay, it's a teaching, and the Torah are the laws, and they are contained in within it. So just reading the scripture, okay, like you said, it doesn't seem godly. It doesn't. Okay, but you have the laws in there, and not all of them, because some of the laws, like I said, they were written by themselves. They wrote them. They said this is from
Yeah,
God.
there are
You
some
know.
very brutal laws.
Yeah, yeah. Those
Still
laws,
can't
those
imagine
laws.
being having been brought from God.
Yeah, exactly. So that, I mean, that's one of the meanings. I don't know if we talked about this in the last stream or the stream before that, but I even had a conversation with Twitter with somebody about this, a traditional scholar, where we talked about the meaning of al-kitab. What does al-kitab mean? Like the Prophet is sent, يعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة. What is kitab? Okay, kitab, of course, is not a synonym of Quran. It means something. And I believe kitab means the prescriptions, the religious rites, the laws, these kind of things. These are what the Prophet taught. Okay,
The
and we have some
mandate
of
of
them in the
God.
Quran. Yeah, the mandates and the prescriptions. These are, كتب عليكم الصيام, كتب عليكم القتال, كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحكم الموت. Prescriptions. The laws of society and stuff like that. So when you look in the Torah, you find some of the laws which are just absolutely crazy, right? Brutal and stuff. Even the stoning to death, right? Which is it comes from the Jews. Okay, I believe this must have been written by them. The Quran says, "وَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَكْتُبُونَ الْكِتَابَ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ." Woe to those who write the kitab, al-kitab, by their own hands and say this is from God. Meaning, what those who legislate laws and these prescriptions, religious prescriptions, right? They write them themselves by their own hands. They legislate them. ثم يقولون هذه من عند الله. Then they say this is from God, right? And they say this is from God. So that's how I view that. All right, if you don't mind, I'm gonna
Okay.
add on somebody else now. It was brilliant talking
Thank you.
to you. Thank you for coming on. I
Same
was
here.
thinking for a while nobody was going to come on. All right. Take care. So now,
Salam.
all right. Assalam. Salam alaikum. Assalam. You're the only one who's left here. So
Yeah,
we'll speak.
walaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yes,
How have you been?
yeah, I'm good. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, all
Excellent.
right. So, yeah, so I tend to read the translation of the Holy Quran. However, since I am not a native Arabic speaker, so these streams is very helpful for me to get some
Mm.
insights.
Yeah,
And I always look up to on the weekends that
no
this
problem.
stream comes. All right.
Jazak.
So I wanted to all right. So I
Yeah.
wanted to get an understanding, like in a story in the Holy Quran, it mentions about. I'm not sure. Are there some creatures or something? Maybe you have heard of some like it's called Harut and Marut.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So they
Yeah,
were
the
doing some.
angels.
Yeah. So they were doing something which, for me, as a like for me also it is like satanic, creating a separation between two individuals. So this it
Yeah.
is mentioned in the. They were creating separation between husband and wife.
Yeah.
That's a satanic, and it's somehow mentioned they were doing it by the will of God, and they were like telling people also that so they are tests, don't believe on us. But on the other way, they were doing this satanic thing or creating a rift between a husband and a wife.
Yeah.
So what exactly?
Let me
And
bring that
also,
verse.
yeah, yeah,
It's one of
and
the most interesting verses. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
you just mentioned. Yeah, just mentioned about that Big Bang theory. Of lately, what has happened? That Big Bang theory in one of the Quran verse, it mentions that the universe was combined and then it
Hmm.
became split. So
Yeah.
many of like Muslim scholars, they are referring to that. So
Yeah,
like
they
just
think
your
they think. Yeah, I know. They think that that means the Big Bang. Also, the
yes,
expanding
yes,
universe. They say, the verse which
correct.
says we created the sky with sort of power, and we are expanding it. وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. They translate that as we are expanding it. Though it doesn't have to be translated that. It can just be translated as وَإِنَّا us, and we are لَمُوسِعُونَ. We are musiun. We are capable of that. وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. Um, and that goes with the rest of the verses, because in each of the verses of rhyme in it is at the end of it he's talking about himself. So I mean, وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. وَالْأَرْضَ فَرَشْنَاهَا فَنِعْمَ الْمَاهِدُونَ. So how good are we for those who can spread things out. Let me pull up that verse that you mentioned. Let me do it without jeopardizing this. There we go. You try and share. I think I have to stop the share first, and then I do another one. Yeah, the verse about Harut and Marut, which is all talking about sihr
Yeah.
and yeah, exactly. You know, so
So
it's
are
an
they like
interesting
using these
verse.
kind of
Yeah, it says it's talking about, so it's talking about a previous people, and it's actually condemning them. So it's not praising these people; it's condemning them. Okay, so it says here, وَلَقَدْ وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ عِندِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ نبذ فريق من الذين أوتوا الكتاب كتاب الله وراء ظهورهم كأنهم لا يعلمون. Okay, so it's talking about people here, right? It's not being praised, they're not being praised. And when there came to them a messenger from God confirming what they had with them, they threw away, a party of them threw away. Let me go to a simpler translation, I suppose. Confirming that which possessed, a party of those who had received the scriptures flung the scriptures of God behind their backs as if they did not know. Okay. ولما جاءهم رسول من عند الله, and when a messenger came to them from Allah, مصدق لما معهم, confirming what is with them, نبذ فريق من الذين أوتوا الكتاب, some of those, a portion of those who were given the book, okay, through the book of Allah, kitab Allah, وراء ظهورهم, behind their backs. وراء ظهورهم كأنهم لا يعلمون, as if they didn't know. Okay, so they didn't know, but they did this anyway. So a messenger came to them with guidance stuff, and they just decided, no, we don't want this, and they threw behind their back as if they. Why? Because they wanted to do what? What's the next thing? It's what you're talking about. واتبعوا, and instead of following the book of Allah, واتبعوا ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان, and they followed that which the shayateen says he recited. Titlu, it doesn't have to be recited, but let's go over that. ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان, in the mulk, in the kingdom of Suleiman. وما كفر سليمان, it wasn't Suleiman who did kufr, ولكن الشياطين كفروا, but it was the shayateen who كفروا. يعلمون الناس السحر, they are the ones who taught the man sihr, okay, the magic, taught man sihr, and they also taught them وما أنزل على الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت. Okay, and what was
so through
what came down?
this, is it like a superstitious thing they were doing to like create a rift between a husband and wife? Is that...
Yes. It seems that way. Okay, so it says here, وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلَ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ, what came down with the two angels, الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلَ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ, the two angels, Harut and Marut. And it says here, وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ. Okay, and they did not teach anybody. Okay, they did not teach anybody until they said to them, we are a fitna, فَلَا تَكْفُرْ, so don't go into kufr. Okay, so it's a fitna. And again, this is part of the, remember that the whole point, one of the whole reasons of we are here on this earth is this earth is a complete test, in every way possible.
Yeah, but whatever they were doing,
you're being tested in one way or another way.
yeah, but whatever they were doing, but the consequences was resulting in a negative way. The husband and wives are getting separated because of the consequences. Yeah, I was saying that whatever they were doing, but at the end of the day, the consequence was bad, correct?
Yes, of course, so, definitely bad. So this is what they're telling them. They're telling them the two angels were saying they did not teach anybody until they said to them, "We are a fitna. We are here as a test. Okay, we are here as a test. فلا تكفر. So don't take it. Don't go into kufr." Now let's just read the rest of the verse before I'm going on. فيتعلمون. So these people, these those who threw the book of Allah behind their backs, فيتعلمون. What they're doing, they were learning from them. So they learned from these two angels. They threw the book of Allah behind their backs, and instead they followed what the shayateen taught, recited, and they got to, they went to these two angels in Babil, Harut and Marut, and after even those angels told them, we are fitna, don't take it. Okay, they were still يتعلمون منهما. They learned from them ما يفرقون به بين المرء وزوجه. They learned from them that which divides between a man and his wife. وما هم بضارين, and here God is saying وما هم بضارين به من أحد, and they were not able to harm anybody with it except by the
Yeah.
permission of Allah.
Yeah.
Okay?
This is
Except by
problematic. This
the
thing to
permission of Allah.
understand.
Yeah, by the permission of Allah doesn't mean that God is giving them permission, like, hey, yeah, go ahead, and it doesn't mean that, like what some people think, that that when somebody shoots a gun at you and kills you, that he's done that by the permission of Allah. No, it doesn't mean that. Okay, this is going back to the whole reason that this was a fitna. Okay, the permission is this. The permission is what was given
Mm-hmm.
here. That we are fitna, so don't takfur. Okay, was this right? That the permission of Allah was given for these angels to teach that. Okay, that's the permission.
This
Okay,
thing, this thing.
Sorry?
I mean,
Sorry?
yeah, yeah. Was the permission given to teach this kind of thing to create
Yeah.
separation? I mean, oh my
Yes.
God.
Yes. It was given to the angels taught this for anybody who came, but they were told, and it says here again, وَيَتَعْلَمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُم, and they learned what harmed them and never profited them. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا, and they did know, they were told, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لِمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. They were told, anybody who buys this, that they are buying then this world for the next. Then the next world they would have nothing. Literally, they would have nothing.
So,
وَلَقَدْ
so
عَلِمُوا
they
لِمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. He has nothing in the akhirah for taking this. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرُوا بِهِ أَنفُسِهِمْ, and how evil it was what they sold themselves for. How evil it was what they sold themselves for. أنفسهم لو كانوا يعلمون, if they only knew how evil it was. Okay, so it is something. Well, of course, I have no idea what sihr means exactly, how it is, but there are things, there are things which do happen like that. We do believe in a different realm, a spiritual realm, where things, there are certain things that can be done which can harm. Okay, فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا. What it is, exactly how it is, I don't know, and maybe it's not
all
exactly,
right, but
it comes into that way. Maybe there's a different explanation for this, but that's the plain reading, and I generally go with
yeah,
the plain reading.
but these people clarified that we are going to be like a test. They clarified in the beginning
Yes,
itself.
they told. Yeah, it says, the verse says here clearly. Again, let me show it to you again. It says, let me make this bigger. Hold on. There we go. It says, um, وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ, and they did not teach anybody, min ahadin, not a single soul, didn't teach a single soul, a single person, حَتَّى يَقُولَ, until they both said to him, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ, we are fitna, فَلَا تَكْفُرْ, so don't do kufr, right? So don't do kufr.
Mm,
And they were also told, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرِينَ, they were told that whoever takes this, they will have nothing in the akhirah, nothing.
all
Right?
right, all right. So
So
these people were purposely they were doing. I mean, all
yeah,
right.
these are just people who are, it's again, look, this world will measure out the full extent of your evil. You can be the most evil that is possible in this world, and you can also in this world be as in at the pinnacle of virtue. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
the world is set up to be like that. You can go down to the lowest pit possible. You can be worse than any shaitan, or you can be huge and greater than the angels.
Yeah. So that's what I was initially confused at how God will come and create such kind of satanic thing. I was like confused. I mean, this thing.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean,
that's
don't forget even Shaitan himself. Okay, God allowed him, right? He said, okay, leave me until the day of judgment. If you leave me, I'm going to misguide all of them. He said, okay, go for it.
correct.
And he said to him, واستفزز من استطعت من صوتك, and beguile whoever you can with your voice, and attack them with your foot soldiers and horsemen, and and be their sharik, their partner in their wealth and in their children, and promise them, make them huge promises. عِدْهُمْ
All right.
وَمَا عِدْهُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ إِلَّا غَرُورًا. And Shaitan doesn't do anything, he promises nothing but deception. Right? So
Yeah.
it's part of why we're here. This life is very short. It's very short. I mean, you don't need to worry about and in God's scales on the day of judgment, everything will be there. Okay, in terms of balance, right?
All
even
right.
a person's inclination, their genetics, all of these things, or every single factor, okay, that goes into what makes somebody, their intelligence, everything that goes in will be part of how God will weigh and assess somebody, what they knew, what they didn't know. Somebody, for example, who is born. There are some people who are just, they're born with a, everybody has different personalities. If you have children, I think you have children, right? You know that your children come with different personalities, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Some
correct, correct.
children some children are very, courageous. Some are not. They're a bit cowardly. Some children have, really big tempers, right? They get very angry very quickly. Some people are, they're angry naturally, okay, and they have to learn to control that, right? But that goes
Correct.
into the equation as well. When God balances things and judges, he will not
Mhm.
judge somebody getting angry who is born with whose nature is one to get more angry, as he would judge somebody else who is a calm person for getting angry. Okay, they're not the same. They're not the same.
Mhm.
One who's more inclined to anger, and somebody who's
Mhm.
naturally a calm person. Okay,
Mhm.
the person who's being calm at his natural state. Okay, is not. He'll be more judged harshly, I suppose, for becoming angry when he shouldn't. Whereas the person who is naturally angry, when he gets
Yeah,
angry, then he will not be, he will not be taken as harshly to account. Okay, ونضع
yeah,
الموازين القسط ليوم القيامة. We will put the mawazin, the balances on the day of judgment, which are,
correct.
perfect. فلا تظلم نفس شيئا. So no person will be wronged even in the least.
Correct, correct, rightly said. So, as a layman, understanding this situation that happened like that century, so
Mm.
what I can understand, the layman, is that whatever like those angels were teaching, people purposefully they were using in a negative way.
Yeah,
This is
yeah, yeah,
all,
yeah.
all
It
right,
is. It
right.
is only. It is only negative. It's not that they were using it in a negative or positive way. The thing itself
Mhm.
is only negative. What they were teaching was
Oh,
only negative. It was
mhm.
only negative. And they were
Yeah,
told,
yeah,
don't. They would not teach anybody until they say, we are only a fitna. So don't even learn it. If you learn it, that's kufr.
Mhm.
Okay, and again,
All
we've
right.
mentioned many times. Okay, kufr is action. So this kind of
Yeah.
action to separate between a man and his wife and do this, and this is kufr. These are actions of kufr. You are learning something to do kufr with. Okay,
Mhm.
and of course, again, we're talking about a very specific people. I mean, where this knowledge is, if there are people who still have it or not, I don't know. Okay, but it's
Yeah,
talking about, these were a section of those who were given the book before us, right? So
yeah,
الذين
yeah.
أوتوا الكتاب. Okay.
Right on. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then look
Sure,
at the
sure. And
next verse. What's the next verse says? It says, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَمَثُوبَةٌ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. And if they had just had faith and taqwa, remember taqwa is to prevent yourself from harm and aggressing others. If they had faith and had taqwa, okay, لَمَثُوبَةٌ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ. A reward with God, a reward from God would have been much better than what they got if they had known. All right. Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
I'm gonna. It's getting a bit late on this. How many? We've been about
Right, right.
1 hour and 20 minutes. Is there anything else, or is that okay?
No, that would be okay. Fine. Jazakallah khair.
No, if there's something else, it's fine. No problem. Go ahead. No,
Yeah.
yes or no?
Yeah. One moment. Actually, there's some issue with the audio. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Can you just retell about that thing? Just I wanted to inquire about that thing, that verse which on the Holy Quran it mentions about two universe being combined. That word
So
some
sorry,
people like Latkan.
I didn't get that. Sorry, you cut off pretty badly there. Say again. Which verse?
Yeah, I'm talking about the verse which mentions that there were two universe together and it separated that particular word,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
Latkan
no,
or
it doesn't
something
say.
that.
Yeah, it doesn't say universe. It just says the heavens, the as-sama wal ard. Don't the
Mhm.
disbelievers see that the sky, as-sama, and
Mhm.
the earth
Mhm.
were together, and then we split them.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
that's
that
all it
one.
says. It doesn't say. It doesn't even say as-samawat. It doesn't say all the heavens, right? It says as-sama
All
wal ard, right? So look, I do, I like I said, I don't look at these things and see and equate them with scientific facts. To be honest, I don't look at them. I mean, I don't believe in the scientific miracles claims. I don't believe in them. Like I said, they're too vague to be talked about in scientific terms, either for or against. Okay, they're just signs. Okay, they're just
Correct.
signs, and some of them we might not still really understand them. Okay, what is it? How is it a sign? You know,
Yeah.
do they not see? I mean, it's as if the Quran is talking to the people who are there. Do you not see the people who are there? Do they not see that the heavens and the earth, that the sky and the earth were one thing, and then we split them? Okay, and that's an
Yeah.
argument given to them as if they know that, as if they see that. So it's not going to wait for 1,400 years for the Big Bang theory, right? It's something that they could have appreciated then. And that's the
Okay.
majority of the Quran. I think is like, okay, everything in the Quran is something that you can appreciate. They could have appreciated even then.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, sure. So
And
Jazakallah khair.
yes,
So I got the yes.
no problem. And here, Prabhupada was asking me, do you know what it means? Honest, I don't know if he's actually asked me or not, but and again, the Quran, there's so much in there, and of course, I don't know what everything in it means or stuff. I mean, we're just doing our best to just try to contemplate and try to just bring people together here so they can share any insights that they might have. All right, okay. Okay, I think SM has gone now. Alhamdulillah. Is there anything on the comments? If there was something in the comments you wanted to be addressed or wanted to be presented, you can type it again now, rather than me trying to find it in all the chat, and I'll put it on. If not, I think we'll be ending it there. Jazakumullah khair. Yeah, I think there's a different, separate conversation going on in the chat. Alhamdulillah. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to end it there. Jazakumullah khair again for coming on, and a reminder to invite anybody who you know, or yourself, who anybody else who has some insights that they can share with us. Invite them to come on next week, and inshallah to share with us and add to our caravan of contemplation. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Jazakumullah khair. I'm going to end it there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.